Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to WPKN, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Delighted to be on with you again today. It's a little snowy day on the way down today. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, but I did, and it's really nice to be here with you. The show is, again, the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel, and I'm hoping that you have the experience of enjoying being with me on the show today. And I've got to find the right microphones here that work, and the earphones. Let's see. Let's see how that works. There we go. Yeah. It's good to get the equipment right. Okay, here we go. So this is a show about helping people who are part of our WPKN community, and anybody who happens to drop by who hasn't been a member in recent years, but maybe doesn't even know the station, but happens to be lucky enough to tune into this award-winning radio station. We're in the Bridgeport area, and we're in our new studios, and this has been a place where people get the chance to talk to me about challenges they face in their life that they struggle with, that might be difficult for them to resolve. Things like perhaps dealing with challenges at work. I know that there's a big concern these days about people going back to the office and whether or not that's going to happen for you or not. You might be struggling a bit with that because I know people who are just really found that they could do a lot more remote than they ever imagined was possible. So one of the things about COVID, which has been problematic for a lot of people for so long now, that turned out to be maybe one of the little silver linings that showed up was that people found that they could work out of their homes. And that benefits the planet because there's less people driving or taking public transportation or just being on the road at all. And they're able to, avoid the kinds of consequences that result from lots of cars on the roads, lots of traffic. And when you are staying at home, you have the opportunity to save that commute time. And if you can find ways to be productive at home, then the question becomes, why are companies, small and large, paying for office space? Now, what do you do with real estate? Of course, that creates a different set of problems for people that own the buildings where you were housed. But nevertheless, it's at least, causing some changes. And now with the idea of going back to work, people are wondering, should I go? If they give me a choice, should I go for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? Should I go back to work completely and not be at home because it's actually easier and better for me to be at the office? Because some people found that to be true, that it was a bit difficult for them to be at home. Sometimes if they have children or partners in the house, or, just because you're in the home doesn't mean you're not working, but they think that they can come in and just ask you for a favor or just listen to this, or what do you think about this, Mom or Dad? So there's a lot of things that were different about the last couple of years. And one of the challenges for all of us now is what's post-COVID going to be like? How are things going to change from what they were, from what they are, to what they will be? What's that going to look like? So maybe you're struggling with that. Maybe you're having some challenges at in the office. Maybe the office isn't where you are and you're having challenges at home and that's more of a concern to you. One of the things I love doing about this show is this idea that if you call in and you talk with me about what's going on for you, I hope, and my goal is for everyone that listens, is that you all learn about this idea of an emotion roadmap. An emotion roadmap is the sense that you are in one place emotionally, and if that emotional space that you're in isn't particularly helpful to you in any meaningful way, and might even be an obstacle to what you are trying to get done at a particular point in time, if what you're feeling emotionally isn't helpful, can you change it? And if you're going to change it, what would you want to change it to? Well, there's a science of emotional intelligence that suggests that, hey, certain emotions are better than other emotions for a specific task. Well, what does that even mean? Well, that's the whole idea of calling into the show, because what I do is I try to help you walk through what's going on, sort of like the executive summary, the quick summary of what you're struggling with, and then talk to you about how you're feeling. And sometimes it involves you just by yourself, and it's a conflict, an internal conflict you're having with yourself. Other times, and often, in fact, it involves other people. It might be a spouse, might be an aging parent, might be a child, it might be a neighbor, it might be in your community, it might be somebody on the street, somebody in the church or synagogue or mosque that you belong to. It's lots of places where we can have conflicts, because conflicts often are involving relationships with other people. So sometimes it's just you and it's an internal conflict you're having with yourself. Other times it involves other people. And when emotions are involved, I find smart people often get stuck because we don't have a lot of training or education or even the words to describe what we're feeling. We don't have a lot of emotional literacy. So when we don't have a language and we don't have a kind of a curriculum that we're taught over the years about how do you deal with anger? How do you deal with sadness? How do you deal with loneliness? How do you deal with intimacy? How do you deal with anything emotionally? What we learn about dealing with emotions is mostly trial and error. Maybe you were lucky enough to grow up in a household where emotions got talked about a lot. And you learned a lot from your parents, and they were great at navigating, the emotional, the emotional stream of life that comes at you. And they were really good at managing on the fly, and they were good about preparing emotionally for things that were going to be, changing and causing some resistance. Maybe they were really excellent at all this stuff, and you got some training and experiential activities in your household led you to have a really good set of skills around dealing with emotions. But if you were like that, you were atypical, meaning you were not usual. Most people don't have that kind of experience, because the people in front of us, our parents, our grandparents, all the generations before us, there wasn't much training for them either on how to deal with emotions. Some of you are caught up right now, and if you can't help yourself, if you turn the news on, just emotionally caught up with what's happening to the people in Ukraine right now, right? You can't help, you kind of can't get away from that. And if people want to talk about how they're struggling with that, you could talk about that today too. But the idea is, how do you deal emotionally with all these things that happen in your life when we don't have a lot of preparation or training or, real curriculum that teaches us about these things? Well, in about 25 years ago or so, I was introduced to the pioneers in emotional intelligence, and like to think of myself as a pioneer myself at this point, in understanding that there's a science that suggests that we have emotional abilities. Just like we have verbal abilities or mathematical abilities or spatial abilities, we have abilities like the ability to know what somebody else is feeling, to look at that person and really know with a high degree of accuracy what that person's feeling, to know what we ourselves are feeling. Also to know what's the right emotion for a particular point in time and a specific task that we're trying to achieve. Some of us are gifted with just an intuitive nature about knowing what's the right emotion to feel. And I'm sure you've met people, and maybe you're one of those people yourself that just seems to say the right thing most of the time, if not all the time, to people who are in need and have emotional needs. And then there's managing emotions. And it's really interesting because the ability to manage emotions is in two very specifically different categories. One is your ability to manage your own emotions internally, and the other is to manage emotional relationships with other people. Do you remember learning about these things? I mean, sure, over time, we're learned to take deep breaths. You know, we've learned about what to do about stressful situations. We've learned some cognitive abilities to try and channel our intellect and our rational mind to control our emotional state. Well, I've actually put a lot of the things that we've learned together into a model I call an emotion roadmap. And the model includes how do we deal with change? It includes how do we leverage our strengths in different ways, in new ways that may help us to deal with our emotions. What does a problem-solving methodology look like? If we're going to try and solve any problem, how can we apply the problem-solving theories that we've discovered over the years that we apply to all kinds of rational project management or technical capabilities or new product development? When we're trying to create solutions to problems that exist, there are methodologies out there. So how do we take those kind of methodologies and apply it to emotional problems that exist? So I'm using all these different theories along with the science of emotional intelligence to create this roadmap that takes you from what you are feeling to what you need to feel given what's going on in your life. So who calls me? Well, last week I had somebody call me, and it was kind of special because it was a woman who called, and maybe Irene's listening, but it was she called last week, and she said, I'm sort of nervous about calling you, but I really don't know where to turn. I'm struggling with the idea that I need to be at work. I left long-term employment after a long time, decided to go back to work, and only worked for a week before I was fired. I'd never been fired before. That's never happened to me. But as I listened to Irene and I understood that at her age and in her particular situation, she didn't need to work. She had 2 grandchildren she was very excited about spending time with, but she was torn internally, and I tried to understand. And through this emotion roadmap, I got to the place where I understood that she was always taught that she needed to pull her own weight, which meant you got to go to work and make a salary and bring in some money so that you can live and help the people that you are in your family or whoever also to live, because that's your job. Your job is to make sure you carry your own weight. That was what the message she was carrying around with her. And, and I said to her, you know what? It sounds like you've carried your own weight for all these 62 years, that you've been working since you were a young girl, and that it's time now maybe to let go of that, as long as you're comfortable, as long as you're financially able, and to focus and to allow yourself to focus on the next few chapters of your life, which are about being a grandmom. She was so happy that I was able to understand what it was that was driving her behavior. The reason she got fired was because she went back to work thinking that she had to, but she didn't have to, and so it didn't end well. So to try and go back again didn't make any sense, because she knew in her heart that she wanted to be able to be with her grandkids, but she couldn't figure that conflict, that internal conflict, without the help of knowing what was making you feel the way you're feeling. How do you want to feel? If you want to feel that way, you got to let go of that message. So those are the kind of things that sometimes we talk about here. And we got our first call. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Good afternoon, Chuck. This is Lenny from Bridgeport.
Hi, Lenny. How you doing?
I'm fine, Chuck. I wanted to just bring up a point. It's not a problem. I'm having a situation. I've tried to contact the WPKN community as a whole for the past 2 years now, and I'm having a bit of difficulty. I don't have what you would call a curriculum vitae. So I've led a marginalized lifestyle the past 40 years. And you could say I was living, on the fringes of the underbelly of society. So people tend to frown upon you, sort of like, when you get off the train, you see somebody that appears to be homeless. You don't know if they're homeless, but they look like they're homeless. So you just make an observation and a judgment. And when you don't know what the truth of the matter is, you could be sort of categorized as a bigot. And basically, over the past 2 years that I've reached out to the station, I've contacted the current general manager, the previous general manager, the program director.
Hey, Let me stop you, because I'm not sure. I mean, this is about PKN, and you want to have I'm not sure how I can help you. Is there something?
I have a proposed solution for climate disruption. And all I asked was I've emailed you, Chuck, about a month ago, and you said to me you didn't understand what I was talking about.
I remember
And
now.
I asked you if you would just give me 5 minutes because I don't have a professional background. I don't have a curriculum vitae. I don't have a business card. I
Hey,
don't
Len,
have a website.
Len,
Yeah.
why don't you just tell us what you want to talk about then, and not go into the history here? Because I don't, if you want to say something, go ahead.
I have a proposed solution for climate disruption.
What is it?
It's a grassroots movement, but in order to explain the concept, I need somebody to just simply take 5 minutes of their time at the station to look at the proposal. That's all.
Why?
I mean, I don't think I asked much.
Yeah, Len, I don't understand why you think the station's the place to make that proposal and not to something in government.
Because there are solutions to problems that have come from universities as incubators and think tanks. When you just combine just a little bit of common sense by taking a look at a problem.
Len, again, why WPKN? What's that got to do with the university?
I'm stating that certain solutions to problems, like Google started out at Stanford University, and it became Google because of one of the professors who invested $100,000. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what does that got to do with, Len, I still don't understand. What's that got to do with WPKN?
Because it's a public airwaves. Do you know the story of Lewis Hill and how this radio station came to be?
No, Len, but this is.
Well, you should look at it because Lewis Hill. If just a very brief bio of Lewis Hill, he was a pacifist. He became a conscientious objector during World War II, and after the war, he started a station out in Berkeley, California, which became the Pacifica Network. And this man, he came from a very wealthy family. The Phillips Petroleum fortune is where he was born into. And that was what allowed him to start WPKN, which has given you the opportunity to voice your, the program that you do today. And all I've asked of the station was, could I please have 5 minutes of their time, somebody in a position of authority, to just take a look at my proposal. It's a visual presentation because I don't have professional background.
Hey, Len, Len, I'm just going to say to you what I wrote in the email. My show isn't about that. You know that by listening. My show isn't about that. I'm not involved with the governance of the station. I have a show where I'm trying to help people with how they're feeling. And if I want to ask you about how you're feeling, and you want to talk about that, I'm fine with that, Len. But as far as what you're saying and what you're asking for, I'm not the right person to talk to about this.
That's what I'm calling for, Chuck, because of the situation here. I mean, how would you describe it? Would you say it's anxiety? Would you say it's?
I get it. Okay. Okay. So it's
what would you call it?
All right. So let's
from a medical standpoint.
Let's stop talking about your proposal. Let's stop talking about PKN, and let's talk about you. Okay.
Sure.
So you're calling up because you're frustrated. Sounds like to me, right?
Exactly.
And you want some outlet, and somehow for the past couple of years, you focused on WPKN thinking, is that the only place you've tried to do this?
No, I've brought it to the attention of the Westport Library. I've brought it to the attention of numerous entrepreneurs.
So, wait. So it isn't just WPKN. You've tried other venues where you think that somebody should see what you've put together, and you're looking for an outlet and someone to at least say, hey, okay, we'll look at this and we'll pay attention to this, and then we'll decide. And you're looking for somebody to give it a real chance to breathe, to grow, to, kind of like planting a seed, and you think it has the potential to be something special. And I get that, right? That's what you're feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're frustrated because you really can't get that venue. You haven't got it here from the station. Because honestly, I mean, for me, just from the station standpoint, I don't know why the station, I mean, the people that you might want to talk to are the people with the programs who look at the news, who talk about what's happening in the world and climate change. If you've got something that you think relates to that, there's plenty of people who talk on the air. You might want to contact them because that's their business. And if they don't think you got something worthwhile, that's up to them. But if they think maybe you make some sense, I mean, Len, you sound like a smart guy. I mean, you do. But you're also
Actually, I'm not. I'm a high school dropout with a ninth grade education.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm not saying how many grades you achieved. I'm talking about your ability to talk about what's going on. You sound like a smart guy to me. So let me stop there. And I'm not talking about how much school you completed. That's not the same thing. Okay?
Sure.
So all I'm saying is that if you want to make somebody aware of this, you got to find the right person, and you got to find out what motivates them, what might motivate them to listen to you. And right now, and so far, you haven't figured that out yet.
I have figured it out, Chuck. It's an entrepreneurial venture.
No. Wait a second. If you'd figured it out, you wouldn't be calling me right now because you'd have somebody listening to you.
No, it's an entrepreneurial venture that requires a substantial amount of capital, about $500,000 for a prototype. It sits on the fence both ways. It's public and private. Privately, it's an entrepreneurial venture.
Okay. Now, again, I don't want to go down this road with you, Len, because I'm not going to solve this for you. My point to you in trying to be helpful to you, and I am trying to be helpful, is that you got to find somebody that's able to do something with what you want to talk about. I don't think the station is the right place for you, honestly. But I have no idea who the right person is or the right people. But you've been studying this for a couple of years, and again, I think you're a smart guy. You just haven't figured out how to get their attention and hold it. Right? Am I right about that?
Well, let me answer your question with a question. Would I be wrong by stating that all I asked of you through the email was, you said you didn't understand what I was getting at. Could I stop by the station and just show you a visual presentation that would connect the dots? That's all I asked. And I keep getting a door slammed in my face and roadblocks.
Hold on, Len. And if I said, yeah, it looks good, Len, then what?
Then it would progress because it is a simple solution.
How would it progress? What would I do with it if I saw it?
The station would be able, like I said, as an incubator.
Wait. We're all volunteers here at the station. So how does my looking at your presentation do anything for you? Even if I like it.
Because I've tried calling people to invest in this.
I'm not a potential investor.
I realize that, Chuck.
And neither is the station, Len.
But you're putting up a roadblock right now is what you're doing.
No, I'm saying
you're closing the door and creating just the same problem that has gone on for 2 years now.
And that's my point to you, Len. You're you're knocking on the same door. It's the wrong door. That's the point.
But how about if I showed you the proposal you said to me, okay, I see where this is going.
No, it doesn't matter.
And you were able to make a contribution to this.
I have no way of making a contribution to this. I have no way of making a contribution to this, Len. And I have no interest in it, honestly. I have no interest in what you're proposing, nor do I have an interest in seeing it. And Len, I'm going to have to let you go because honestly, the show's about helping people with their feelings. And you want to keep going down the same road. And if I help you at all with this, pick a different door to knock on. Pick a door that can really be helpful. The station makes no sense.
So who should I call? Fraser Crane?
Len, this is your world, and you're all living in it. You're a smart guy.
Thanks for not helping me, Chuck.
Bye,
Goodbye.
Len. Bye. Well, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. I think sometimes I guess you get frustrated and you want somebody to help you, and I'm not sure I can help anybody with a climate change proposal, so sorry about that, Len. Okay. Anyway, the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. If you are dealing with something that you want some help with and you want to explore opportunities and possibilities, then give me a call. If you got something you want to just jam down somebody's throat here at PKN, that's not going to be helpful to you. I can't be helpful to you around that. So anyway, all right, that was a strange call, Len. Okay, and I wish you luck with it because I know you're trying, and I know you're trying to get something done for the planet and the environment, and you haven't figured out how. But that's on you to figure out what's the right door to knock on. I don't think you're knocking on the right ones, it seems like. Okay. Well, anyway, what I did want to talk about today is just this idea of what do you make of the leadership that's happening in the world today? One of the things that sort of stood out for me in recent times is this President Zelensky, and kind of a remarkable character. And I was just thinking and talking with friends about is there anybody else in the world that we know of that's a leader who would do what he's doing right now, who's been as inspirational as he has been to his own people? And is he even doing the right thing? Is he even doing the right thing? So, I mean, what makes for a good leader? What makes for a good? Is he a good leader? Would you think, or do you think he's maybe he should have just accepted what Russia wanted to do, and maybe lives wouldn't have been lost and people would have been uncomfortable? But I think his nation wanted him to do what he's doing. But I don't know. That's something that no one will know except the people who live there and who are living in what's happening. And it's sad, and you can't get away from it. You know, you look around and you see all this sadness about what's happening, and people, I've heard in conversations, people are reminded, is this a Chamberlain moment? Where Chamberlain just kind of kept acquiescing to Hitler because everybody's afraid of the nukes, the nuclear part of this equation. And so if you back off now, will there be another time and another time and another country and another country? These are such hard questions. What makes for a good leader? So that's one of the things I was thinking about today. In your experience, have you worked with people that you thought were really inspirational, really good leaders? I'm not asking you to talk about Ukraine, but I am asking you, have you had an experience with what you think is a really excellent leader? What makes for good leadership? What do you think? What do you think makes for good leadership? What are your thoughts about that? So one of the things that you might want to think about is to call in and just talk about you as a leader. If you are a leader, what are some of the issues that you're struggling with as a leader? Can we, as a community, reach out and help you with leadership issues? One of the things I do for a living is I work with a lot of leaders, and I help them with human issues, relationship issues, motivation issues, engagement, and culture issues, because all those are impacted by how people are feeling when they walk in the door of your workplace. When they think about it's Monday morning and I'm going back to work, are they excited about it? Are they feel sort of a bit of joy because of the people they're going to see and the experience they're going to have? Or do they dread it? Now, a lot of people just really like their weekends and dread the idea of starting the work week all over again. But once they're there, how do they feel? You know, is it a positive experience? Is it a negative experience? Usually work is both. But, overall, do people feel really proud and inspired by what they're doing in the workplace? Do people feel proud and enjoy being a part of the team that they're on? Do you, as a leader of that team, do things where you're encouraging people, where you're supportive of people, where you're noticing how people are feeling? One of the curious things about emotional intelligence and what came into play in recent years was this idea that if we're going to assess culture, a lot of companies, good-sized companies typically will assess the culture inside their workplace to see how people are motivated. I got another call. Just a second. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Yeah, hi, this is Norman.
Hi, Norman. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
I just heard you speak about how I feel about what Zelensky's doing over there in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Boy, it's a tough thing to deal with. Emotionally.
It sure is.
For me, personally, emotionally, yeah. I mean, when I see these children and mothers running from getting out of the country and bombs and whatever going off, I mean, it's just like going backwards into time, with the World War II invasions and all that stuff,
Yeah, it kind of brings you back to that. If you're, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just terrible. I mean, it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, have you got something? One of the things I'm glad you actually called about this moment, because in some ways I'm thinking about what can people do. I mean, we're watching scenes that are look like something out of the movies from World War II, right? I mean, it looks like
exactly.
We haven't seen things like this in so many years. Not that there hasn't been horrible things that have happened in the world, but for some reason this is on our we have nonstop television coverage of this stuff, and so we're seeing things, and I know that for my family, a lot of us are trying to figure out, are there some things that we can do in some ways to help the refugees? Is there something we can do to encourage our elected officials to do more, to see if there's other things that we as a country can do? Are there things that we can find, whether charities or things somehow to support food for people that are, all of a sudden just have lost everything. And so anybody that's got some good ideas around that, those are some things I think that Norman, so many people are feeling like you are, and I am, and others. And it's like, can we do something, anything that at least makes us feel like we're doing something?
To my knowledge, there's ways of, there's places where you can send money through the broadcasting systems. TV shows have websites you can send money to. The legitimate, websites.
Yeah, I think you want to. You either want to know somebody that's vetted them, or you want to vet them themselves with a charity navigator or something like that. You just want to make sure that you're not just sending money to some place that isn't going to give most of it to the Ukrainian people somehow. Yeah.
No. Well, I watched the late shows, Stephen Colbert show, and he's got a website you can go on to, and which is really a good one because his show is popular and a lot of people watch it. Sure. And he raises a lot of money in these kinds of situations. Myself, personally, I try to contribute, but I don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of people don't have a lot of money, and things are costing so much more in our own country right now. It's kind of hard. Even if you've got some money, you feel like whatever you thought you had is worth less these days because of filling. If you're driving a car, you got to fill your gas tank up, and it's a fortune when you go to the pump right now. And same thing with your home heating oil and you're getting natural gas. All these things are costing so much more. So maybe it's not money. Maybe there's time. Maybe there's something that you could volunteer somewhere to do. And even if it's not for the people in Ukraine, maybe, one of the things that I've always found is if I'm feeling bad about something in my own life, if I do some volunteer work and I'm helping other people, somehow my own issues become less. And my concerns, if I'm doing something that helps somebody that's in front of me, and maybe I'm not helping the people that are, getting bombed by what's happening over in the Ukraine, but at the same time, at least I'm doing something to make the world a better place, and that feels good, even if it's not something that's overseas, but it's local.
Well, all these sanctions that we're putting on Russia, it's going to affect them in a way, and of course it's affecting us. But I hate when people start complaining about the rising prices that we're going to incur here because of these sanctions. Well, I feel that this is one way that we can help Ukraine.
Well,
having these sanctions.
I've seen some polls that say like 80% of all people, irrespective of political affiliations, 80% of the people say, don't worry about raising prices because we think it's worth it. And we're so worried about this. And if that's one way we can help out, we should do that. The flip side is there's 20%. I don't think they're bad people. I think they're people who are living on fixed incomes, and they don't. And they're basically they got enough money at the end of the month to have food and medicine and gas and heat, and now all of a sudden they don't. So I never want to judge somebody as somebody who doesn't want to pay the extra money because I don't know what their circumstances are, and maybe their circumstances are just, again, I want to be thoughtful about everybody. So here's an example. Like one of the things that we just did was we stopped buying Russian oil and Russian gas, right? The United States did.
Right.
And that took some pressure, by the way. I'm surprised it wasn't easier. But anyway, it took some pressure. But the flip side is that means that we're going to have to spend more money on some of these things ourselves, right?
Right. So this is our way of helping Ukraine.
Right. So
if you look at it.
So then there's the other argument that says, hey, wait a minute, what about if we produce more here? If we produce more here, in the United States, rather than, I guess we're asking Venezuela and Iran and Saudi Arabia and some of these other places to make it. Yeah. So what if we produce more here? If somehow we supported those industries that we've kind of walked away from because we want to change, we want to save the climate, right? We want to save the planet, rather. So this is conflict about, but if we did that, are we doing something that's harmful to the planet? And I thought to myself, well, if we're asking these other places that don't produce fossil fuels in a clean and safe way as we do, or Canada does, for instance, then I think that the best solution, if we're going to help Europe get off of Russian oil and Russian natural gas, which is where the big money's being spent, And the Ukrainians have been clear. Stop buying every barrel of oil you buy means more people are being killed here. So, so if we take and we look at what's the best for the planet, then maybe doing it here, producing it here where we do it safer and cleaner is a better deal, even just for the short time that we do it, in order to lower the costs for us here, because if we're producing it in our own country, the costs don't go up the same way they do as when we're buying it from someplace else. So I don't know. Again, those are things that make people kind of nuts because, but then you go back to fossil fuel dependency. And I think, well, we actually need to be allowing somehow Europe to get off the Russian, dependence.
Yes.
So anyway,
all
that's just
all the countries, if all the countries, that are opposed to what's going on over there with all this Ukrainian invasion, if they all got together and we, that's what NATO is supposed to be about. And because Ukraine is not part of NATO, we can't go in there and help them. But then if we did go in there, then we'd have a world war.
And a nuclear war, and that's what's scaring everybody.
This is what everybody's talking about.
And that even that feels like that Chamberlain moment, right? Back in World War II, before anybody committed to go against Germany, we'll just give them one more country because it's not us yet. So I mean, if you look at Georgia and you look at Crimea and now you look at Ukraine, do we really believe it's going to stop at Ukraine if we don't do something here?
No, it's not going to stop there. Putin is a megalomaniac, and I gotta say that because he's a replica of Hitler. I really believe this. So
I think a lot of people agree with you. I'm holding off judgment because I don't know if he's insane or if he just is so power hungry or whatever it is.
I've heard Republican, people in Congress, even some people have said that he's nuts. Oh
yeah, anyway. No, I've heard it myself. I mean, again, and maybe he is. It's clearly, I think clearly he didn't expect what's happening to have happened, and so he's dangling the nuclear stuff out there. But he actually took and he shot missiles at the nuclear reactor that they have there. I mean, that's pretty insane to me.
That's. I mean, his thinking is reminiscent to the past presidents.
Well, okay. I don't want to go down that road. Okay.
I shouldn't have said that, but I didn't. I don't want to bring that guy up. Yeah. But in any case, my feeling was one way I was felt really great about doing something in a small way for Ukraine here. In Stamford, Connecticut, which is the next town over from me, there's a college, the St. Basil's College, and it's all Ukrainian people that run this, and it's a lot of Ukrainian people in the neighborhood around there. And this friend of mine who had gone to this college years ago went there for a couple of years, and he brought me over there over the weekend. And this college, I mean, it's incredible. It's on a big campus, and it's a Gothic-looking church. Mm-hmm. And they have this school on one side, and they rebuilt it. They built a new part of the school. I mean, it's really organized. And they even have a museum in there, which I'm planning on going to. You got to go there on certain days.
So what's the name? What's the name of the college again, Norm?
St. Basil.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
In Stamford, it's easy, and I lived in Stamford for many years, and I used to drive by there, mm-hmm. and I would see this thing up on the hill with this big, lawn in front of it, and I never took notice what the heck this was. But the college is around the corner of this building down the side street, which I never went down, and it was down there because my friend showed it to me. So we went there, and there's people walking around on the campus, families, and I got to see the church, and we took some pictures. And the family that was out there, I started talking with them, and then I got together with them. I said, "Let me take a picture." So I took a picture of everybody, and the father, who took the picture of this group, including me and my friend, he took the picture because he said, "I'll take the picture." I said, "Well, you're not going to be in it." And I don't know, maybe he just didn't want to be in the picture. So, but the satisfaction I got out of talking with these people, and to him in particular, because the family walked away. They went down the hill. It was just kids and mothers and grandmothers. Just talking with him, Tony and I, my friend Tony, and this man Oleg. His name is Oleg. Had a really, really satisfying conversation, and having heard his feelings about what's going on over there, they are proud people. They're so proud. I can't believe what they're doing to defend the country. And
it's pretty remarkable, I got to say. I mean, again, I know some Ukrainian people just because over the years I've met some. It's hard to classify a whole people because you don't know, but you see what they're doing, and you see that they're fighting back, and there's such a love of freedom that they're willing to sacrifice the way they are. It's pretty remarkable, actually, the whole thing.
And so, Zelensky, he's going down with the ship, more or less. He's not going to leave.
Pretty remarkable. I mean, it's kind of like, are we watching a Clint Eastwood movie? A guy says, I don't need a ride. I need more ammo, right?
Yeah, it's like a Clint Eastwood or a Bruce Willis movie or something like that.
Something, yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. And again, is it the right thing to do? I'm not in a position to say, he's absolutely they're doing the right thing. I mean, I worry that he's got his family with him. I just don't know about that part of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, this fella Oleg, his mother still lives over there in Ukraine, but in the western part, and close to Poland, and in case she's got to leave, she doesn't have that far to go to get over the border.
Yep.
Which is, here's a man with his mother still living over in that country.
Wow.
And he's here in this country with his family. I don't know why he didn't bring his mother over here, but anyway.
Anyway, Norman, I want to let you go because I want to allow other people to call in. But I want to thank you for the call, and thanks for telling us a little bit about St. Basil. And I guess part of this is like, even if you can't do something for Ukraine, when you feel like you're watching the world around you, and there's so many things that are so upsetting. And one of the things that, just from the standpoint of emotionally trying to do something that makes you feel good about life, is find something local you can do, even if it's not for Ukrainians. Just something local you can do to help somebody out. I think that makes a difference.
The satisfaction that I got out of just talking to somebody from that country was made me feel better. And the museum, by the way, is open on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 5. If anybody wants to go.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the information, Norman, and thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye. Again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. And I want to thank Norman and Len, too, for calling. And if you want to call, I got a little bit of time left today, 203-336-9756. Again, I know we've talked a little bit about what's happening in the world. It's kind of hard not to. My show, I try to keep my show from being political, and I try to take, even when it does get political, just trying to take a look at why everybody feels the way they do and what might help people feel differently. That's why I thought, if it makes sense for us to do something around, creating more fuel supplies for the rest of the world so they aren't dependent on some of these bad actors, Russia being the main one right now, but there's others out there. I mean, is there something that we could do that says to the people that don't want to see any more fossil fuels anywhere, really, that, well, if we're going to produce more, wouldn't it be best for the planet? Wouldn't the planet win if it was done either in Canada or the United States, which have a lot more safeguards and are a lot more thoughtful about the environment in terms of the way they do these things? So, again, trying to make some rational sense out of different ways to think about what's happening, because it's challenging. We all know that. And you can't, again, you try to watch the news and it's like nonstop. So, and I know for myself, I do periodically check in during the day, but I can't watch a half hour of news. I watch like 10 minutes and then I'm on to something else. That's the way I'm dealing with this stuff. Again, if you got something else that you'd like to call about, something that's personal, that's happening in your life that you wanted some help in dealing with, the show's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. One of the things I was suggesting, that is, if you're feeling badly about some of these things that are happening in the world, which it isn't just what's happening in Ukraine. There's lots of things that feel aren't going quite the way we'd like, I think, including COVID, of course. But COVID seems to be kind of moving, not as concerning as it once was. So are we at the endemic stage instead of the pandemic stage? it seems like we're at least headed in that direction. I kind of think, one of the things I'm a little concerned about myself about COVID is that, all of a sudden everybody is saying, hey, you know what? We don't need masks anymore. I was struck by the State of the Union because we had just seen everybody wearing masks there, almost everybody to a person. And then right after, when President Biden finished speaking, everybody's going right up to him, just talking right in his face, no mask. So I don't know if we're going to see a little spike just because all of the masks have been dropped off. And it's still around. And I know certain places and certain countries are seeing some spikes, but so far, thank goodness, in our country, it seems to be the numbers are down in our hospitals. If you're vaccinated, you seem to get, when you do get sick, you get less sick. And maybe at some point, we're coming to the point where, it's going to be something we just learn to live with. It'll be like the flu. The flu kills people on occasion, but it's rare. And hopefully that's what's going to happen with these coronaviruses as well. So emotionally, we're all trying to deal with that when we're dealing with what we're seeing in our TV screens, if we're watching the news, or on our computers or smartphones, wherever we're happening to see these things. So there's things that sometimes boil your blood, and you get no place to go. And sometimes if in years past, evolution taught us that when you're in a situation which is threatening, you either fight or you run, fight or flight. You fight with it or you run from it. When we're seeing something on our screens that we really can't influence, how can you influence it? Maybe Norman's idea, going to the museum, learning something about the country and the culture, and finding ways to somehow be engaged and support that country. Kind of a neat way to think about that. But the thing that you can do immediately is just think about what's around me. Who in this country needs some help? How do I take care of somebody that's here, that's needy? I guess I'm thinking a lot of people, as I said, I know people en masse are saying, hey, you know what? If it's going to cost us some more money, then we'll pay more money if it means that Russia doesn't get some extra income that they can use for weapons and attacking Ukrainians. So I get that, but I also know that there are people on fixed incomes and typically had fixed costs for the most part, and those costs have shot up. Towns and places, everybody whose you budget a certain amount of money for heat, you budget a certain amount of money for gasoline and transportation. You budget a certain amount of money for food, for medicine. Everything's costing more. So how do we manage all of that? How do we take care of that? How do we do something different? And if we're a person of means and we're okay, and we know of people that aren't okay, can we help them out somehow? Can we help them out? Is there something we can do for others that makes us feel better because we're doing something to make life easier for somebody in need? And as I said, I think we got plenty of needs in our own country. If you can't do something for people in Ukraine right now, that maybe you can do something on the local level that makes you feel good and it helps people out in your neighborhoods. Okay, again, the number is 203-336-9756. And it's my go-to. I think volunteering to help people is a beautiful thing, no matter when you do it. The whole idea of my show is, this is my 13th year doing this show, and I do it as a volunteer, and I do it because I feel like there are times when somebody calls in, and because of some gift that I have, because of my luck and having experiences where I've been brought into really brilliant people, and I've had the chance to work with really these innovative, pioneering psychologists to take what they discovered in laboratories, their brilliant research, and find a way to make it useful to people. And when I'm able to make it useful to somebody who calls in on the show, and I know other people are listening and are also learning about how to use this concept called an emotion roadmap. So if you think about an emotion roadmap, a lot of people are feeling upset about what they're saying. Now maybe you can do something about it and feel better. That's the idea. Got another caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, Chuck. How's my connection? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Thanks. I'm sorry. What was your name, though?
John.
Okay. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Hey, Chuck. Listen, I really appreciate your I've listened, caught it over the years, and I wanted to say that, I called in and can't remember why I called, but I know that anybody who's out there, had something that they wanted to talk about, that if they called in and they got your advice, that I know it made me feel better at the time, and it doesn't have to be a life-changing type of reason to call, but just maybe just to say the words. And I appreciate that this conduit is available.
Thank you so much, Sean. That's so nice to hear from you. I really appreciate that. And I hope I'm glad you remember it as being helpful, even if you weren't exactly sure what it was about. Yeah,
right. Well, that's just the thing, right? You can't always, our problems, you know what I mean? We don't want to hold on to them, right?
Right,
but,
that's true.
But you want to, if you know you get resolution, you file it away as resolution and move on to the next one, I guess.
I guess maybe that's the best way to think about that. Hopefully it's not something you hang on to because it's done and over with as a result of whatever it is I might have said to you at the time.
But one of the things that I really, you talk about emotional intelligence a lot.
Right.
And one of the things that you had mentioned in a past radio show was, naming your emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how different cultures have a lot more ways of expressing an emotion. So as a parent, I've been listening. How long have you been on the air?
This is the 13th year, actually.
Yeah, right. I figured as much. I have a 19-year-old boy who's turning 20, and I've used some of the emotional intelligence types of roadmaps to help develop his emotional intelligence. And I've used things that, like you've said, taking yourself, looking from the third person, giving emotions a name so that you can see them coming. And now he's 20,
wow.
And he's a self-aware, and understands what he's not doing, and you know what I mean, in life for success, and with all the pressures, and he was just one of these kids and missed his senior year prom, missed his senior year, goodbye, first year of college on a PC, didn't get that social connections that colleges often to provide. He's living at me home now, and I'm watching this incredible emotional up and down of a 20-year-old male. And I was just, what's my best course? Just to say, have an open ear. I say nothing,
Well, I think it kind of depends. I mean, because you're living together, there are times when he's more open to listening to something than he might be other times. When he's full. Well, I think if sometimes when somebody's very emotional about something, the best you can do is just to hear him out and just say, Jesus, seems like something's going on for you, without saying, hey, it looks like you're upset, because he may not want to acknowledge he's upset. But if you say something's going on, you feel like talking, and then maybe he unloads. And unloading, well, as a parent, I know it's really hard for me not to just want to say, wait a minute, can I stop you and just tell you what I think you should do instead of what's happening? And that, right, is that how it feels?
Yes. Yeah. You were really
right. So
feel like you try to give a lesson, and as soon as you even right. they get the hint of a lesson, their eyes roll in the back of their head, and you lose it.
So if you've been listening regularly, John, so here's the pieces of the puzzle that I think help. One is you ask him, was he willing to talk about what's going on? And he does. And all you're doing when he's talking about it is you might interrupt him for a moment, not to give him any advice, but just say, let me make sure I understood what you said, and just kind of repeat back to him. So, because sometimes, when somebody's really upset about something, or they're really caught up internally with stuff going on for them, it comes out confused. And one of the things that you can help is just by clarifying and just asking and say, well, I'm sorry, I might not have got that. This is what I thought I heard. Was that right? Or did you mean something different? And it allows him to, in his own mind, just get more clear. And that's a gift, by the way, if you can just do that without offering any judgments, without giving any advice. And then when it's all done, when he feels really heard, then I would ask, because this is a strategy I think really works, is, so what are you thinking you're going to do next? And if he's not, I have no idea, Dad, then would you mind if I suggested something? Because when I find if I ask permission, it's very different than all of a sudden me just telling him what to do. So those are two things. One is ask him what he's already thinking about. And if he's got some good ideas and you just want to reinforce them, that's great. One of the other things I found that might be useful, John, too, is that sometimes if he's like feeling really upset and he wants to feel calm about something, have you ever felt this upset before and found a way for you to feel calm later? Was there something in your past? It doesn't have to be the same kind of thing, but the feelings were the same, in terms of what you were feeling and what you wanted to feel? Because sometimes people find that in different ways, in different circumstances, they've actually accomplished what they think is impossible to accomplish right now, because when they think about the feelings were the same, even though the situation was different. And if they've had success going from upset to calm in the past, maybe there's something in their history that allows them to build on what they did before, that gives them some ideas about how to go forward.
Well, what you're saying is to have them connect that resolution of a past event with the current issue that they might be having.
And say the circumstance doesn't have to be the same at all. It's just what you're looking for. Were the feelings the same?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those feelings that bring them to help you in the now.
If you've been guiding him all these years with the stuff that I've been talking about, he should be receptive to this stuff.
Well, he is. That's what I'm saying. He's very self-aware, but with self-awareness becomes, you know what I mean? Now you're putting yourself under the microscope. You know what you're not doing, right? You know what I mean? You know that like his biggest thing is now he feels that he's not on the path of his greatest potential. And, it's that old letting the
John, let me stop you.
The way they're good.
There's a hard stop. The automation kicks on in 30 seconds. So I'm going to have to say goodbye. But you know what? Try some of the things we talked about. And I'm back in April for the first 2 weeks. Call again. Let me know how you did. Thanks so much for the call, John. Appreciate it. You take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Thanks a lot. This has been Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I'll be back in April. Have a really good couple of weeks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.